Good afternoon and welcome back everybody to one more installment of the Dimas Wine Shop and Tasting Room video. This is for the week of Bombastic Wines, and we've got a really nice selection coming up. We've also got an announcement or two to make towards the end of the video. And this week, when talking about Bombastic Wines, we're usually talking about wines that typically are old world, or I should say new world, meaning that they get a lot more sun exposure, they're much more fruit forward, they're much more intense, and all of these, I just went through the tasting, and all of these certainly fit the bill. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, Kristen, with number one, with the La Piche. So La Piche is a great new addition that we've carried. We've been carrying it on, I think it was Bonnie that brought on La Piche, and we've been carrying that now for at least a couple of years. This is put out by Perlu is the house that makes it. This is a sister label to it. But this is 100% Chardonnay. It does come out of the Russian River. This is their 2013. It does see French oak, it does see Surly, and as a result of that, it gets that kind of real vanilla, coconut, kind of yeasty bread kind of flavor, but definitely real intense and very big. When talking about, Chardonnay itself just doesn't have a whole lot of flavor. It really depends on the winemaker to really kind of make their stamp on it, and I think this one certainly fits the bill. Then we go on over to another great winemaker that I really like, is Muscardini. This is another wine that we've carried here for probably about a year or two, and I absolutely love what Michael Muscardini is doing. This here is the 2012 Barbera. It comes from Sol de Matino. That's the vineyard that it comes from. Remember, Michael Muscardini, that's in Sonoma Valley, by the way, but Michael Muscardini is known for making single variety wines. So he will single variety and single vineyard wines. And that's what he's known for. That's what he does really well. He's not a farmer per se. What he does is he buys the fruit from existing vineyards and ones with very good reputation around Sonoma for the most part, and just makes these amazing wines. And this is his Barbera. He's got a couple of different Barberas, but this one is the Sol de Matino vineyard. Then we go over to the Tinto Negro. This is Malbec out of Mendoza. This is the 2012 from Uco Valley, which is in Mendoza, Argentina. It's 100% Malbec, 9 months on French oak, and talk about fruit and licorice on this wine. Normally I would think of espresso to be more kind of like cigar box and chocolatey. This one isn't so much. This one is much more fruit forward and definitely has a nice bite of licorice to it. So just another big bold wine that I think all of you will enjoy. Then we go with the Brudekel. The Brudekel is a family. They've been making wine since I think the 40s. 43 I think was when they started making wines. This here is their 2010 Zinfandel. This is the Hopland Ranch. So Hopland Ranch is there's several varieties, grape varieties that they grow in Hopland Ranches. And this one in particular, they actually get from 3 different vineyards is where they're getting the Zinfandel. And the majority of it is old vine, but then there is a blend of new vines, and cherry, cinnamon, real earthy notes, but kind of real Italian tasting, because that's how the family is used to making wines in an Italian style. But it's Zinfandel, so kind of think about like a Primitivo. We just had a great Primitivo last week that had these real spicy notes to it, and this one certainly follows suit. But once again, a big fruit forward, not overly jammy, but big fruit forward wine. Then we go over to the Firestone. I just tasted this, and this one kind of blew my mind. Firestone makes labels all across the board, from very inexpensive to very high end, and everything in between. And I would say that this one certainly fits the bill as far as being a very good, high quality Cabernet Sauvignon out of San Ynez. This is their 2013. This sits on 17 months of a combination of French, American, and Hungarian oak. And it is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. 35% of that oak, I should say, is new. So blackberry, cassis, vanilla, coffee, those are the notes that are going to come out of this wine. And but there's this floral note to it, especially on the finish, that kind of reminds me of like rose petals, and something that I wasn't expecting in this wine, and something that I typically don't expect out of Santa Barbara cabs, but this one does it really, really well. So another wine that I think the majority of you are going to enjoy. Then we go to, last but not least, which is the Trinitas. This is the Trinitas. This is their Old Vine Petite Syrah from Contra Costa County. 100-year-old vines. 100-year-old vines. Think about that. 100-year-old vines. None of us, any of you that are watching the video, none of us were alive when these vines were planted. But for it to be 100 years old would mean that it had to go through Prohibition, which going through Prohibition means that those vines were probably abandoned for a while. It also went through phylloxera, which phylloxera was a pretty deadly disease that decimated a lot of the vines here in California. So these vines made it through all of that, and they continue to make just some real outstanding wines. We just tried this wine with Kristen, and both of us agree that it's real deep and complex and just absolutely delicious. Big blueberry notes, big chocolate. 18 months on American oak, which would be very classic of a Petite Syrah winemaking style. So that right there is our selections for this week, and we have got, we've got the dinner coming up, which is over at Rosas Cucina on Friday, November 20th at 6:30. It's $70 per person, and Cooper has with the restaurant designed the menu, and then he's also done, by looking at the wine list, looks like he's done an amazing job of picking the wines as well. So I think all of you are going to be in for a huge treat. So without further ado, as we get closer to Thanksgiving, come in and see us. We've got great wines for holiday gatherings, and we certainly hope to see you guys soon. Cheers.